Let's talk about the plague of pornography for just a minute. Wow, this is one of the biggest issues that so many deal with in these latter days, but few talk about it or even know how to talk about it. And when they do talk about it, it's usually in a private setting with a leader who is expected to know how to navigate struggles with pornography. Thankfully, Leading Saints has put together a remarkable resource called Liberating Saints. It's a virtual library with 25 plus presentations focused on helping leaders be better prepared to help someone overcome struggles with pornography. We cover topics like how to minimize shame in the bishop's office, how to talk with children about pornography, and even how to talk about female pornography use in Relief Society. If you'd like to review the Liberating Saints library at no cost for 14 days, simply go to leadingsaints.org/14. That's leadingsaints.org/14. While you're at it, we'll give you access to all of our virtual libraries that cover several leadership-related topics. So click the link in the show notes or simply visit leadingsaints.org/14. All right, I'm here with Neil Henderson. How are you, Neil?
Very well, thanks, Kurt. How's yourself?
Even better, especially that I get to listen to your accent for the next few minutes. So this is good. And we are connecting from different sides of the globe. You are in Gorleston, England, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. Perfect.
And that's on the east coast of, Is that right?
England. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And born and raised in that area, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I was born actually in Great Yarmouth, which is like the neighbouring town, and moved to Belton. So I spent most of my time in Belton, which again is another neighbouring town, then moved to Gorleston after I got married. So yeah, pretty much a homeboy.
Nice. And were you born and raised in the church?
No, I'm a convert. No, I joined the church at 21.
Oh, nice. So what's the story behind that? How did you get connected to the missionaries?
Well, it's kind of a crazy story. Have you got all night?
I've got all night. Well, I got all afternoon. It's your night. Cool. It's my afternoon.
Yeah, it's my night. Yeah. So it kind of happened back in 1990, and I'll start at the beginning because it's probably best if I start at the beginning. I'll work my way through about my kind of belief structure when I was young. So again, as I mentioned, I was raised in Belton, which was a little town just sort of kind of south of here. And my mum and dad split up when I was quite young. I was around about 3-4 years old when they split up, usual kind of circumstances. And me and my brother went to live with my mum and my new stepdad when they got married. They had a new house being built. So we were pretty much looked after when we were young. And my mum's always been quite religious. She's Church of England. And there's a lovely little quaint church in Belton, and funny enough, my mum's getting remarried this year after my stepfather passed away. So in that same church I used to go to Sunday school in, so they're getting married later on this year. Huh. And we went to Sunday school most mornings in the Church of England. But growing up, I was always asking questions. I wouldn't say I was overly religious, but I was always asking questions growing up, even through my teenage years, like, who am I? Who's Neil? I'd find myself as a teenager looking in the mirror going, who's Neil? Why are you here? What's your purpose? Why are you here? And I remember saying to the vicar in Belton, about who am I? Why am I here? And stuff. And bless him, he's a lovely man, Leslie Ward, who was the vicar at the time growing up. But he could never really answer those questions for me, and it kind of weighed off over a few years until I met my lovely wife, Carolyn. And that's a story in itself. So we met at karate. I started going to karate classes later on with my cousin. And we went into the karate class. Now, the funny thing is, my wife never, or as it was then, Carolyn, not my wife, Carolyn Bone, went into the karate class. And she actually never used to go into this class. It's crazy. It's how the Lord works and how he puts things together and miracles happen. Yeah. So she went in this class. I kind of saw her sister and liked her sister. And didn't even pay any attention to Carolyn, and she'll laugh about this now. And but her sister wasn't interested in me, so I was like, oh dear, she's not interested in me. However, and I'm not saying Carolyn was a second place because she wasn't, because I hadn't noticed Carolyn. I hadn't noticed what a lovely, beautiful woman she was and is. And after we'd finished these karate, because I had a little red sports car at the time, I was earning a little bit of money at the time, and it was great because I was living at home, so I had some spare cash. And she used to leave little notes on my car after karate class. And I was like, who the heck is littering around my car and leaving notes on there? And her and her sister was watching me out of the class, and I picked up this note and I kind of read it and I screwed it up and put it on the floor. Not because of I was being mean, but because I was so embarrassed. I was terrible with girls, Kurt. Terrible. I couldn't talk to them, and I get embarrassed and shy. So I was kind of a bit embarrassed, but she kind of pursued me, and we ended up getting closer, and talking, me being a non-member as well, not being aware of the standards of the church at the time was kind of difficult for me, knowing what to expect from Carolyn, because it is obviously very, very difficult to talk about kind of taboo subjects as you would in the outside world out of the church, So anyway, we went to a karate competition. I invited her to come with me in the car, and it happened to be on a Sunday as well. And I always remember about this, breaking the Sabbath for a karate competition. And I bought her chips. And we were coming back from, I think it was Ipswich in England, the neighbouring kind of city of in Norfolk. And we were coming back from this competition. I had her cousin in the car as well, Stephen, who I'm very good friends with. We go run, and I've been close with him for many years from being married. But he was quite a young chap then. He was in the back, and he was obviously a church member, baptised. And we were coming back, and we were talking about the church. And I said, so tell me about your church then. What is this church? He said, well, time, we're Mormon. You might know us as Mormons, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I said, really? I've never heard of them. Who are they? That sounds really weird. Who's they? Tell me about it. So she told me all about the church and everything. And then I felt something for the first time in, I don't know, probably around about 10, 12 years. I actually felt something, and I thought, this isn't normal. This doesn't, when I was having these conversations with Heavenly Father, you can feel that little bit of the Spirit, but if you haven't got it all the time, you don't feel it all the time, do you? So, but this was the time when I experienced that feeling of the Spirit again. And at the time, I didn't know what that was. And she told me that in the church, she said she would never marry a non-member, is what she said of the church. And I thought, oh boy, this is no good. I like you, and this is no good. And I had no intentions of marriage or anything like that. However, instantly, I don't know how I felt it, but I did. But instantly, I knew that I was going to marry this girl, and I kind of thought, well, I better have a look to see into this church and see what it's all about. And that's when the big con came in. And I'll always remind her about this. I say, you can say you conned me into joining the church, but in a nice way. So I was invited round to her flat, her apartment. Yeah, we call them flats here in England, but it's kind of like an apartment. And her two friends who were there, Michael and Belinda, they'd been married, very, very newlyweds, both in the church. And they invited me round, and they invited a couple of guys round as well with little black badges on, but I didn't know who they were. And of course, I soon found out who they were.
Yeah.
And I remember one of them was called Elder Smith, and I can't remember who the other guy's name, but later on I remember the other one. I'll do a shout out to him as well, because I've not seen him for nearly 30 years. So if he's listening to this, then later on, hopefully he'll remember me.
Yeah, reach out. Right?
We can reconnect, yeah. So anyway, the two missionaries came around and started to teach. Said, look, we need you to come round because Michael's feeling a bit low on the church. We need to teach him a bit of some church lessons. Would you mind sitting in on the lessons with him? And
Michael, so he was a member, but just a friend, or
his friend, yeah. So he was kind of a new friend to me because I'd met them a few times. We've been out.
Gotcha.
We've been out in my car up the seafront in Great Yarmouth and stuff. So I got quite close to them.
You thought you were doing him a favor then?
Yeah. You should.
It was all a con.
Yeah, I know, and I got conned. So I'll blame him even for today. So we sat down, and then the missionaries are talking away, and they're looking at me, going, "Well, we're going to talk about Jesus Christ and the gospel and Joseph Smith and all these stuff." And I'm like, "Why are they looking at me? Why are they talking to me here? You're talking, no, talk to Michael, not me. You're here for, I'm just here to support." And then it kind of clicked. The penny dropped. Oh, yeah, I get it. Yeah. You want to talk to me. However, I let them carry on, and I felt the Spirit, and that was kind of me hooked. My mother, I went home because my mother's Church of England, and I remember going home that evening because obviously I weren't allowed to stay around Carolyn's apartment, very inappropriate at the time. So, I weren't allowed to stay around there. And it wasn't until we got up to the law of chastity and other areas like that, Carolyn obviously did explain to me about her beliefs and the areas which were taboo. So I kind of understood. But when it came to the law of chastity, then I fully understood about respect for her, for religion, for me as well.
Yeah.
And it kind of clicked, and then I kind of understood more. So, that kind of made it easier for both of us understanding that.
So it was a pretty quick process as you soon after you realized that teaching was for you?
Yeah, you'd think, wouldn't you? But it didn't quite happen like that. So I went home, had a chat with my mum, told her about the church, told her about the Mormons, and that I was having these lessons, and she was kind of like, she was all right, actually. She's kind of said, whatever floats your boat, if that's what you want to go for, if you feel happy with that, then you do that, because I'm telling you now, it's just going to be a phase. It's just one of them phases, what you go through, Neil, that's what it's going to be, as a phase. 30 odd years later, I'm still having my phase, So, so I had the lessons, I had the discussions, and Satan's a funny old thing when he gets hold of you. When you're that new person and you're trying to learn, and Satan tries to get his claws into you, and that happened to me. And I was with the military at the time as well, so I was going away quite a bit and coming home, and I'd had the discussions with Elder Smith and the other elder. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. It was such a long time ago, but I always remember Elder Smith. Common name, I know, but and I felt this darkness come over me, and they were getting a bit pushy and stuff, and I kind of pushed back a little bit and went, no, leave me alone. This isn't for me. This isn't for me.
Yeah.
But I know the Lord had other plans. And I went away with the military, with the army. I was a corporal at the time, so I was kind of a section leader. You know what I mean? So I had a small group of guys I used to be in charge of, and we were going away, and we were sitting on a hill in Wales. And if you've ever been to Wales, have you ever been to England?
I haven't.
Right. Well, Wales, lovely people. So if anyone from Wales is listening to this, I would say yucky die. I think that's a Welsh thing for saying hello, but lovely people and lovely, beautiful countryside. However, when you're in the military and you're in Wales, it's no fun. It's always raining. It's always cold. It's always wet. It's always kind of miserable when you go there, because whenever we do exercises, it's always in the winter and it's always cold, and it's just generally not like that. So I was on this exercise, and we were watching this called a firepower demo, and some of you guys who have been in the military know what it is. The planes and aircraft and everything come over, and they let loose with all their missiles on the tank hulks and things, and it's quite exciting, really impressive thing. And then it all stopped, and it went quiet, and I was kind of on my own on this hill, and I suppose it's a bit like being in the Sacred Grove a little bit, because you're kind of on your own, this beautiful hills and things around you, and it's rolling green, everything, it's gorgeous. And I was contemplating the church, and I had this peace that came over me, and at the time, and even now, it just gives me goosebumps even thinking about this, because this doesn't happen often. You can't tell me how many people in the British Army are members of the church. We've got a few, but not many. So the odds on someone else being a church member and also not from your own regiment coming over to speak to you will be pretty slim, right?
Yeah.
But that's what happened.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there on the side of this hill, contemplating on the church life, everything like this, Carolyn, of course, thinking, I want to do this because I want to marry her. And this guy came over, it's from the parachute regiment. Now, parachute regiment guys are pretty tough, I mean, I was just normal infantry, if you know.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I went nothing like special forces or anything like that. I was normal, bang on infantry guy, So I was a bit of a grunt, if you like. So for this guy to come over, and he was an officer, and to sit down, he said, "You look deep in thought there, Corporal." He said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, no, I'm fine." He said, "Tell me about it. What's going on?" So I kind of said, you're going to laugh, sir. You're going to laugh. He goes, no. But let's have a chat. So he was standing there and having a chat, and I mentioned the church, and he said, "You'll never regret it. I'm a member of that church." And I was like, "You are kidding me." He said, "No." He said, "Best thing you'll ever do. Best thing you'll ever do is join that church. Believe you me." He said, "It'll just help you no end." He says, "It's helped me in my life, and it'll help you in your life." And before you know it, I turned around and I was like, "All right, okay." And he'd gone because he had to go away. Didn't even get his name. Don't know who he was to this day. I've not seen him anymore. I don't know who he is or where he came from. All I know, he was parachute regiment and he was in our church. So with that information, I remember sitting there and I just cried because I knew what I had to do. By this time when I'd gone back, we had a new missionary, and this is the guy, Elder Chad Wagner. So Elder Chad, if you're out there, get in touch, because I miss you, I love you, and I'd love to reconnect with you. I really would. So Elder Chad Wagner and Elder Smith. So I went back, saw Carolyn, said, "I want to get baptized. I want to do it as soon as possible. Let's get this done." So we got the program together. I saw Elder Wagner, I saw Elder Smith, said, "Let's sit down." And he was a greenie. He was just out, fresh from the mission field. I'd never served a mission, so I didn't know. And even to this day, I've not served a mission. I married a return missionary, though, because Carolyn's a return missionary. So I did marry her. So that's my excuse. And he said, "It's always as easy as this and as quick as this. I've got everything here to, I said, "No, not always, not always." So the following week, we went to the chapel, and Carolyn's Carolyn's father baptized me, John Bone. And that was kind of it, really. My journey into the church had then kind of started. So, so it's a bit of a crazy story, but and I'm still here going through my phase. You don't look
like an old guy. So was that 5 years ago or what?
Oh, bless you. Yeah, I knew I liked you. No, I'm 52. So I'm, okay. I'm getting there, getting a bit older.
Nice. But, and then you're currently serving as the bishop in your ward there. Maybe break down what the church is like in that area, the demographics, how it's laid out and whatnot.
Yeah, so here in Gorleston, it's quite a rural kind of stake. We've got seven churches in the stake. We've got Norwich, we've got Gorleston, Kings Lynn, Milton Hall, Thetford, who I talked about before, Dereham, and I think that's it, Lowestoft. They're all part of this, but the distances and the demographics of the churches around here are quite far. So the High Councilman, unfortunately, have to have quite a big journey to get to us on speaking assignment and vice versa. So going around is quite a trek. Two of the wards, we've got Thetford and Milton Hall, where the American bases are. So we have a bit of contact with your fellow countrymen, Kurt, and countrywomen. So we do get visits from them as well. So we're very rural as a church. We have around about, since lockdown, because obviously we had the lockdown with COVID, we have around about 85 attending before we start. When I first joined, we had 150, 160. But we're quite an old ward now, and a lot of those members, unfortunately, have kind of passed on now, and a lot of the youth have kind of gone off elsewhere. So it's kind of took our numbers quite down, probably halved, I'd say. Yeah. But we're still broadcasting online services as well. So we're getting around about 5 or 6 online, and the rest 65-ish in the chapel at the moment. And it's kind of very similar in Lowestoft and the other wards as well. So I wouldn't say it's a very, we're a strong stake, we are all together, but I wouldn't say as in members, we haven't got hundreds and hundreds of members, our whole stake might fit in one of your chapels in Utah. I don't know, so it's kind of spread out a bit.
Yeah. And what do you remember about that, being called to that as bishop and just starting in that role? What was difficult? How did you go about just finding your footing?
Well, funny thing is, when I got the phone call that the stake president wanted to see me and Carolyn together, I was like, oh no, not the bishop. I had no inklings about being called the bishop. We got called, and I was like, oh boy, Carolyn, what's the matter? I said, I'm going to get called on the stake. I just know it. I don't want to go on the stake. You got to travel around, you got to give talks, and you got to do this. And I was like, oh, I really, really don't want to go on the stake. She said, well, I might be a member of like the youth program in the stake or something like that. You might be a councillor. I was like, yeah, that'd be okay. I'd like that. I'd really like that. So of course we go into the stake president's office, and he said, Neil, how you doing? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. And how's your standing in the church? How you feeling? Do you love God? Do you love Jesus Christ? Do you love the gospel? I was like, yeah. And what would you do for the members in Gorleston? If things are, what would you do differently for them? I said, well, I wouldn't do much. I'd love them. I think that's probably I could offer. I'd love them. He said, good. I'm glad you've said that, because we'd like to call you as the bishop of Gorleston Ward. And I looked over to Carolyn, her jaw nearly dropped onto the floor, and I was like, I don't even know if I said anything. I thought, are you serious? Why why do you want me? I'm not a scholar. I can't recite scripture. I can't do half the things that these great guys in the ward can do. Why do you want me? He said, I don't want you. The Lord wants you. We prayed, we got down on our knees, and the Lord wants you. And it was so strong, because we see the love in you, and that's what the members need in Gorleston. They need love. And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from the previous bishops, because they've been great and fantastic. I've learned so much from them, from being a councillor and stuff previously with them. So it was a bit of a shock, if I'm honest, Kurt, when I was called, and that was 4.5 years ago.
Oh wow!
So
nice.
It's been a while. So it's been a big learning curve for me, up and down. It's been that. I'm sure many bishops, you've been a bishop, I think, as you know, it's kind of like a big roller coaster, isn't it? Up and down emotions, highs and lows and stuff. So it's been kind of it's been a building moment for me. This last 4.5 years has helped me to grow immensely. It really has.
And your first principle here, as we typically do with these How We Lead episodes, we review some principles that you've maybe thought of before and what's really helped you. And your first one is, you're not going to fix everything. And man, what a crucial lesson for a bishop to know. Yeah,
well, I'm also a qualified carpenter, so I love building things and constructing, fixing. And Carolyn always says to me, whenever she's in trouble, or if any of the family in trouble, I try to fix it. I try to go around there and try to help and try to fix and try and make it better. And Carol's like, you're not going to make everything better. You can't. Sometimes I just want you to listen. I just want you to sit there and listen. Don't try and fix everything. I just want you to listen. And that was the first thing. You can't fix everything. You really can't. I learned this very, very early on as a green bishop, if you like, and I had a situation. I can't talk about the situation, but it was a situation with a member, and I sat down with her, and I was trying to fix it. I was trying to fix the problem that they had, and it was a problem that I couldn't fix. And I remember the member saying to me, why don't you just listen? I just want you to listen here. I don't want you to try and fix I want you to listen. And that was a big lesson for me, because I've tried to reach out to this person and because they left, and I blame myself a little bit for that. And I think, was it because I didn't listen? Was it because I couldn't do this for them? I've learned now it probably wasn't. I think I've reached out to them and tried to make it better, try to fix it. And that taught me a big lesson, Kurt, that sometimes you just got to sit and you've got to listen. Because what people want, just want you to listen. That's all they need.
So this may sound silly, but if you were coaching somebody on how to listen, how do you do that? I mean, do you just, pinch your lips together so you can't talk, or what? Well, how would you coach someone in listening?
It's hard for me because I like to talk. It's been what I do now. I sit there with my hands in between my knees, and I kind of sit there and yeah, I don't do it in such a way that I'm looking at the person to make it look as if I'm weird, like a puppet or something. Like, I'll sit there and I'll kind of smile if it's appropriate, and have that, the normal face if it's appropriate. You can't sit there and just giggle and smile at everything, because no one's gonna, if it's inappropriate to do that, and because you may be a bit nervous as well. I've been nervous in the past where you might have done a kind of a facial expression that might not be appropriate for that situation. So I've got to be careful with that, because sometimes I get a little bit nervous, if I'm honest, certain things, and it's not me being awful or mean or anything like that. It's just sometimes, are you laughing at me? Are you smiling? It's like, no, I'm really not. I'm trying to understand here. And again, that's something that I learned earlier on, is to try and keep a straight face as well when and you concentrate on that person and really listen. And I try to invite the spirit into that meeting before, because like we had a word of prayer before to invite that spirit in, and that I've found that helps, because I've not always done that. I think not having served a mission and done them missionary things, it's kind of like, this is my mission. This is kind of, I want to hopefully serve later on with Carolyn. But it's learning those missionary kind of traits and those missionary things. And for me, that was kind of difficult to learn that, So so hands down in the lap and straight face, but invite to a prayer.
Love it. Love it. Next one is don't try to do everything yourself. How do you go about delegating?
Yeah. So that's and again, that was now I'm always getting, now I have a wonderful Relief Society president and a wonderful Elders Quorum president, and Sister Paris, who's my Relief Society president. She's always telling me off. That's like I'm a son that she scolds, and tells me off. You can't do everything, Bishop. You can't do everything. Let us. That's what we're here for. You concentrate on the youth. This is what we're to do. So again, I'm trying to fix things.
Yeah.
That's another thing that it's taken me a bit of time. I'd say probably 3 years, even 4 years to learn. I'm now only just getting it that you've got to learn to delegate to those around you to help you. You can't do everything. So now I use the Elders Quorum, I use the Relief Society more. We've got activities committee I use. I have my councillors who are wonderful, who help me. With the youth, and I have a great young women's presidency. That they all help. They all want to help, and you find the more you give them, but the assignments that you discuss them in your one-to-ones and your meetings with them, and you get more out of that. And I find that really important as well. Having your one-to-ones with your presidents and Elders Quorum Relief Society president. Fantastic meetings we have them that I have with them, and we have our meetings, we discuss, and I go away from that meeting knowing that they're going to get it done. They're going to get it done, and for me that's great delegation. So
any tips on, as you have those interactions, are there specific questions you seem to ask more than others, or where do you start? Do you sometimes feel like, man, we just met, do we really have anything to talk about? I mean, how do you go about handling those interviews?
Well, again, my day job, I'm a fire officer in the fire rescue service, so that helps me, because that's kind of my job. I have to kind of talk to people and get the best out of people, and one of the things as well, like standards. So if we have a firefighter who has standards that are dropping and dripping, and going off a little bit, we have our one-to-one meetings that we have and say, look, you're kind of here and I need you to kind of be here. How would you go about that? What do you want to do, and how can I help you to facilitate that? Or how can you help me as well to do my job? So what we kind of do is put like improvement plans in place. So it's kind of a subtle improvement plan that I can give to my Elders Quorum Relief Society president, in our meetings, that then they can pass on to others. So we kind of have a good chat about that. We can and so my work helps me quite a lot, if I'm honest, with the training courses that I do and like the admin side of stuff, admin. So for people who need help, we mustn't give up on them. I wouldn't give up on my firefighters. I wouldn't give up on my friends or my family, and I wouldn't give up on my church members. And we try and have that ethos in Gorleston that we don't give up on each other. And there's things go on, Kurt, in the ward. As I'm sure you've experienced before, where I hear about it in these meetings and think, wow, these people are really doing that for such and such or this other person, and it really warms your heart to know that how kind these people are and what they're doing for them. They're not their ministers, they're not their ministers. And we chatted about, sorry, I'm not going off subject for a little bit, but we had a chat in ward council about this a few weeks back about ministry, saying about how even though you have a list of people on that ministering list, it doesn't mean to say that other people can't help them. It's not just the minister's responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility to help each other out. Sure, yeah, let the minister know that you've done this to help them, because that minister might not have that skill to help that person, whereas that other person might have that skill. So it's about helping each other and being there for each other and having that love for each other. And I've really experienced that in the ward recently, especially with COVID and being an elderly ward, how they've really stepped up, the members. They really have, and it's wonderful to see. So, what was the question?
I'm just as far as how you go about those interviews, specific questions you ask, or how you help people that way, so you're not doing everything on yourself. Yeah. So again, I'll step that back to, what do you think we should do? I haven't got all the answers. The thing is, as well as you'll know, everybody thinks just because you're the bishop, I know the Lord qualifies. However, you don't know. You're not the font of all knowledge. You're not the font of everything that you can tell them exactly. So I rely on my elders quorum president and my Relief Society president to tell me how they're going to fix it, and I can feel the spirit and feel what they're saying and say, yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good plan. Let's go with that. So because obviously they're entitled to their own revelation. They know things that they want to do in the ward, and I think if they just get me to rubber stamp it, if that's what we want to do, if there's an improvement there that perhaps I'll put another suggestion in there that the spirit dictates to me, so be it. So that's important. I always try and put the question back on them and say, how can we help with this situation? What would you do? And that, I think that invites me, because it's empowerment, isn't it? It's kind of empowering others. Yeah. The last point is, and I'm excited to hear you break this one down, but keep meetings to time and use technology where appropriate.
Wow.
The beast of meetings, we're always fighting it off.
Yeah. So keeping it on time. So Carolyn will tell you this, my wife, she'll say, I'm a terrible timekeeper. I'm always on time for work and church, no problem. But other things, well, I was a bit late for us tonight as well, but because I was trying to get on the technology again. So keeping things on time is important for me, because I'm no good at it. I'm no good at it. So I have people on the ward council, because obviously we're going a lot on technology at the moment with COVID and how that situation is. So we are not meeting in person at the moment. We will do again soon, but sure. As I said, in England at the moment, it's dark, it's dull, it's cold. Do I want my Relief Society president? Do I want my primary president? Do I want my young women's president coming out on a dark, dingy night, coming all the way from where they live, very rural, 20 miles away, to come to the chapel for a meeting in the chapel? I don't want to put the sisters through that, so I think technology has been a great thing for us in COVID, and to embrace. We get everybody there at the meeting. I can have my councillors there, the brethren, they live closer. So if we go down the chapel, we can meet together and we can invite the sisters online. So it's important, I think, to embrace technology, because it does help us. Because otherwise, perhaps the sisters, and it's not just the sisters, the brethren as well. We do have, I'm not singling them out here, because we do have brethren who live quite far away as well. So it helps everybody, and it can get to a wider audience as well. So whatever comes from that meeting is instant, bang, instant. We can get it straight out onto Facebook. We can get it straight onto WhatsApp. So if there's something that needs to be done, they are on it straight away, messaging, such and such needs a visit, sister such and such needs, or brother such and such needs this, and we're on it straight away. And I'll tell you now, Kurt, it's been an absolute revelation for us here, because I think I'm a bit of a technophobe. As you probably gathered, I'm not brilliant with it, so it's kind of been a big learning curve for me to use that, to use technology and embrace technology. Whereas my young councillor Joe, who's my second councillor at the moment, wonderful with technology. So everything like, can you do this, Joe? Can you send a link out? Can you do this? Whereas Dennis is a little bit older than me, my first councillor, so he's not. But actually, he's probably better than me at technology, if I'm honest. So again, it's that delegation thing. He's very good at technology and using that to get the messages out. We've been asked to continue with streaming our sacrament meetings at the moment from the stake. So we are continuing to do that, because we've still got a lot of older, vulnerable members in the ward who like to hear, and like to participate in the sacrament service the way they can. All right, they might not be able to have the sacrament each week, but we can still bring a bit of that into their homes via technology. And I'm really grateful for that we can do that, and they can hear the speakers each Sunday. So technology, embrace it. Don't be scared of it. Like me, just embrace it and use it.
And if you're scared of it, usually one of the counselors can help you out, or you can find maybe one of the priests in the ward that can walk you through.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, yeah.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Any other? You mentioned WhatsApp and a few other technologies or apps. Are there any other? Any other systems or apps you use that really are helpful?
Well, the stake are kind of we've got. Pete Weston, who's just been called on the stake presidency, and he's very up on his technology, and he's joining a lot of the Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, and other things, and being invited to come on a lot of the ward technology. Twitter, I know we can, there's Twitter that we can use. Instagram as well. There's a lot of members on Instagram at the moment. So, obviously we've got to be careful what we put on these platforms, so we do offer a little bit of guidance about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to put on there, and about comments as well. So, sometimes you might see a general subject, which I saw the other day on Facebook. It was a general subject about something, and one of the church members had commented, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to have a word with them about this, so it's kind of, again, it may be one of the older members, let's say, perhaps not used to talking on these, so not realizing how many people this is reaching, so we've got to be careful. But with Zoom, we use, Zoom's been brilliant, obviously with the church accounts and stuff. So, and I'd never heard of Zoom again before, COVID. So
we're all experts now. So.
Yeah, I guess the shares in Zoom are like through the roof, because everybody's got it now. So those are the sort of platforms mainly we use. So your Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. WhatsApp's very good. I've got a ward council at WhatsApp because Sister Paris, bless her, she doesn't do Facebook, so she's on WhatsApp. Uh-huh. So we kind of get things done on that and Facebook on our group page, and that works really well for us. And
so you just have a ward group on Facebook, or do you have for leaders?
Yeah, we have. Not for leaders such, because we're only allowed the one of the things I did stress was that it's only myself and one of my councillors that can authorise what goes on the Facebook page. So So it comes through, so we can kind of make sure it's appropriate to put on there. So, but the stake has a Facebook page. We've got a stake young men, stake young women's, then we've got a stake youth. So they all have their own separate little bits. We have our ward youth, we've got a ward primary. So there's so many different areas that we can get the information out. My wife's on the ward primary presidency. So we're going to do an activity with the youth next Saturday, with the primary children. And it's a bounce one. They're on the trampolines and do all that sort of stuff. So it was great that we could put that out there, because we have a lot of non-members and a lot of investigators and a lot of those who are a bit less active that are actually on the page. So we can instantly invite them, and they've got no choice. They see it, so instantly seen this, and we've got a few coming out next week who might not normally come to church, and we can engage with them and hopefully bring them into church and baptize a few of them and reactivate a few of them. And, so it's a brilliant tool. That really is. And it's, you can see how the Lord has made this happen in the last days, that we've got all this technology that we can use, for the right reasons, and I think that's wonderful. And it's only a good thing.
Great. Well, Neil, this has been fun. I always love having some diverse accents on here. People get tired of our American drawl here, but
I love it. So, I think it's great.
Nice. And this has been fun just to learn about the church in your part of the world and how you're leading. And that's great. Any other principle or concept or tip that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure we hit on? If not, I'll ask you one more question.
I think just be yourself. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a returned missionary. I'm not, I would say, the ideal candidate that anyone would put forward that would consider themselves to be a bishop or even a church member sometimes. I guess I'm a bit hard on myself at times. But I think you recognize in yourself that the Lord loves you, and I think it was Elder Gong he had a message this week, didn't he, about we can always trust God. We can always trust in him because he knows us better than we know ourselves. And I think that's kind of really important that we do trust ourselves and trust the Spirit and be guided by that as well. And that's what I kind of try to do, and have a prayer in your heart each day. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, the last question I have for you is, as you reflect back, maybe particularly on your 4.5 years as bishop here, being a leader, how has being a leader helped you become a better follower of Jesus Christ?
To be a leader, for me, it's to walk in the steps of Christ, and as his representative, you do try to kind of uphold those standards expected by him. It's a privilege to serve the Saviour, and to learn, that we're all brothers and sisters, trying to see the pure through spiritual glasses rather than like the earthly ones. And I think as we do that, it will draw you closer to the Lord and to being more like him. And that's kind of the way I see it.
And that concludes this How I Lead interview. I hope you enjoyed it. And I would ask you, could you take a minute and drop this link in an email, on social media, in a text, wherever it makes the most sense, and share it with somebody who could relate to this experience. And this is how we develop as leaders, just hearing what the other guy's doing, trying some things out, testing, adjusting for your area. And that's where great leadership's discovered, right? So we would love to have you share this with somebody in this calling or a related calling, and that would be great. And also, if you know somebody, any type of leader who would be a fantastic guest on the How I Lead segment, reach out to us. Go to leadingsaints.org/contact. Maybe send this individual an email letting them know that you're going to be suggesting their name for this interview. We'll reach out to them and see if we can line them up. So again, go to leadingsaints.org/contact, and there you can submit all the information and let us know. And maybe they will be on a future How I Lead segment on the Leading Saints podcast. And remember, go to leadingsaints.org/14 to access our full Liberating Saints virtual library.
It came as a result of the position of leadership which was imposed upon us by the God of heaven, who brought forth a restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And when the declaration was made concerning the only true and living church upon the face of the earth, we were immediately put in a position of loneliness, the loneliness of leadership, from which we cannot shrink